Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. It's Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And, of course, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks taking a breather today from an impressive record run-up with a modest pullback from record highs today. Gold continues to shine with a record-shattering price above $4,000 for the first time. Silver hovering around $48 an ounce. Bitcoin pulling back from its record high we've seen in the last day or so, which was above 126,000, right now at around 122K. Stocks slipping from their latest record-setting run-up as Wall Street took in the latest government shutdown fallout against hopes for AI and the big spending we're seeing there. The Dow came in for a closing loss today of 92 points. The S&P 500 down 26 and the NASDAQ down 153. All the major averages just below their record highs. The price of gold topping $4,000 an ounce for the first time ever today. Investors continue to flock to the yellow metal as a safe haven asset. The AI trade losing some steam today, led by a decline in Oracle on a report saying profit margin in its cloud computing business was likely lower than many Wall Street analysts expected. Shares of Oracle down about 7% throughout the day, but closed about 2% lower, down about $7 at $284 and change. Tesla in focus today. The shares dropping about 4% after Tesla unveiled a cheaper Model Y model priced under $40,000. At a launch initially teased in a series of social media postings. We did see Tesla shares pull into reverse, down more than $20 at $433 and change after an impressive run-up recently. Washington gridlock on a funding bill continues. President Trump signaled he would negotiate with Democrats over the health care subsidies they want to extend, but only after the government is reopened. He also upped threats toward federal workers. Looks like layoffs will be in the cards here if this thing continues. The government shutdown continues with the Senate scheduled to vote on something today to reopen the government. We'll get an update on where things stand with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, will be joining us live from Washington. The Tesla news today, of course, big with Tesla unveiling a cheaper pared-down versions of its two best-selling EVs. Auto loan delinquencies, meanwhile, have soared by more than 50% over the past 15 years, according to a new reading we got today. We'll get the latest on the Tesla announcement and auto loans, the whole works, with our go-to car expert, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports and the Total Car Score podcast. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, gold, crypto, the whole works now. Joining us live, John Najarian. Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion and co-author of the popular book It's Not an Option with his brother Pete. He also has the laser eyes on, too, and follows the cryptos quite closely in what's been a record-shattering week. John Najarian, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Oh, it's always great to be on with you, Frank. Thank you for having me.
All right. It's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones. We saw Bitcoin clear 126,000 this week. What's your reaction to that and the latest price action we've seen here with the cryptos?
Well, obviously there's a lot of interest. You have already cited gold. I know we'll talk about that as well, but digital gold making a very strong case, especially with the crypto crowd. I think more and more people are going to be adopting this, and I think you agree. More and more folks will become people that when Ray Dalio says, buy gold, make 15% of your portfolio in gold, there are going to be people like me and perhaps you that would even say you should at least consider having an allocation of 2 to 5% in crypto. And I think that's what's behind this surge that we saw to record levels for Bitcoin. And I think a lot of the digital asset treasuries known as DATs, I mean, I just joined as a chief evangelist of one of them. And I think there's going to be an awful lot of action in that space, Frank, because it kind of combines TradFi or traditional finance with crypto in much the same way that ETFs have done that for cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think this is just a much faster way to expand that universe. And so these treasuries, these digital asset treasuries, are really, I think, driving a lot of this activity that you just cited.
On the live with John Najarian, always expanding our vocabulary. TradFi, I like that one. DATS, of course, digital asset treasuries. And of course, you got analog gold and digital gold that you just talked about. You're right, though. Analog gold was in the spotlight today and did, in fact, hit a record high today above $4,000 an ounce. So what is your reaction to that? Obviously, a lot of geopolitical concerns. Of course, a painful anniversary being observed today, a second anniversary of the Hamas terror attack on Israel, and we're still awaiting some sort of a peace deal there. And nervous time between Ukraine and Russia, and of course China also saber rattling, and of course nervousness about currencies and inflation and so forth. What about analog gold here?
Well, so obviously, you know, when you're the founder of Bridgewater, which Ray Dalio is the emeritus chairman over there, he said 15% he thinks is a minimum allocation in your portfolio. So if you have $1 million portfolio, 150 grand in gold, you would have been a pretty happy camper this year because that asset's up 53% this year. I can't remember ever saying that about gold, even in the Hank Paulson or John Paulson days when he was being so aggressive with it. But 53% for GLD as well. That's the ETF for gold in case people don't want to store bars somewhere. And then the GDXJ, which are the junior miners ETF. So miners that are less than $3 billion fall into that category. That is up 104% year to date. So when people give Peter Schiff or anybody else a hard time about, owning gold and saying it should be a significant allocation in our portfolios, I think they are certainly the gold bugs are being vindicated this year. And I don't think it stops. I think that keeps going. There's just not enough of it. And you and I know if it's something where people the demand picks up more than the supply, we're going to see higher prices.
All right, and then there's silver, which has also seen an impressive run-up as well and getting close to the all-time high last seen back in 1979. What do you see ahead for silver here?
Well, I like it. And it has outperformed like crazy a number of asset classes this year. Silver has. And this one also has that ETF. Again, if you don't want to hold bars or coins, you could own the SLV, which is the silver ETF. And it is likewise putting up great double-digit returns this year. I really can't stress enough, Frank, that we're going to see a lot of the people that are in that asset class, precious metals, moving and migrating over into the likes of BNC, which is a DAT that trades, owns actually Binance, which is one of the largest exchange tokens in the world. I think we're going to see more and more migration from like you said, analog gold into digital gold. And there are a number of examples of that happening right now, every day.
All right, you wrote the book. It's Not an Option with your brother Pete. Are you doing any option plays here with this big move in the metals?
Well, I am. We're trading an awful lot of both those ETFs that I just spoke of. GLD, again, for gold, and GDXJ for the junior miners. And some people might say, why are the junior miners, why do they move double the pace of regular analog gold? Well, because they're smaller and because they are under $3 billion in market cap, they tend to be much more aggressive with trying to get the price before you pull it out of the ground locked in, because they can't really afford to chase it. And the bigger stocks, whether it's FCX, Freeport, or any of the big ones, that are, multi-billion-dollar gold stocks, they have a little more flexibility than do the small caps. And that's always the case. Small caps are really dependent also on being able to borrow at reasonable rates. And now that we're seeing rates starting to come down a little and perhaps coming down a lot as we go into the first quarter of next year, that's really good for those.
A lot of bubble talk lately as it relates to AI. What are your thoughts on that and the big run-up we've seen in all the big names here now?
Well, there was that report or survey, at least, of senators where they said that they thought we could lose 1 million jobs because of the impact of AI. And if that's true, which it could be, I would say, well, that's why you're seeing the kind of money flow into AMD, into data centers, into any of these opportunities, if you will, like NVIDIA and any of the even Intel. We're going to see those that provide the chips for the data centers and so forth for AI skyrocket, and justifiably so, especially, again, if we're going to see 1 million jobs lost, and I'm not calling for that, but that was a Senate survey. I think we're going to see a lot higher prices for many of these semiconductors and for data centers and power vendors, if you will, the likes of those SMRs or small modular reactors that we talk about so frequently.
All right. What about some of the names that have been in the news lately? Intel, which continues to draw investment interest, and it looks like we're all owners of Intel here, given recent events. Intel is hovering above $37 a share here now. What about Intel?
Well, and that stock has doubled in the last quarter. I think you and I recall being on air together talking about when President Trump was uncomfortable with the CEO of Intel and some of the fines he paid in the past for his dealings with China. And he was calling basically for his head. And now the president has, not just recently, but in the last couple of months, put up a significant amount of money to own a 10% stake for the American people in Intel. And that 10% stake, like I say, the stock has doubled from those lows in July, I believe, where it was close to $18 to, as you said, up over $37. So 10% ownership in there looks pretty good right now.
All right. What about Oracle, which has seen been bouncing around here around 290 or so, pulling back about 7 today at 284 and change. That's the one that made Larry Ellison the wealthiest guy in the world about a month or so ago.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I mean, Larry has held on to, just like Elon, has held on to a lot of his stock. And when people bet on themselves and stick to their guns, and the fact that he's got skin in the game, pretty significant skin in the game, it's not from him cashing out of that Oracle stake. It's from him basically riding that wave. I think that stock, obviously on the software side, but certainly software is integral to cybersecurity, as well as a lot of the data centers that we need to operate for AI. I think Larry's in a great spot, and he'll probably go back and forth with Elon about who's the richest guy.
All right, and then some of the old school names, AMD and gosh, MU, Micron, also making news recently. Yeah,
well, again, whether you make DRAM, dynamic random access memory, or any of the, those would be chips, of course, like Micron makes, or whether you make hard drives like Western Digital, or, the other stuff that we've just spoken about with AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. I think all of these are going to be in demand. Does that mean they all go straight up and it doesn't stop? No. Anyone that tells you that, run. But what will happen is they will go up and they will squeeze shorts, which happens a lot, and then they'll pull back after a furious run, and then that's the chance for people that missed it to get in. Not on a 2% or a 4% pullback, but on a significant pullback, I would be a buyer of any of those stocks.
All right, here we are hovering just below all-time highs. How much more you think this thing has to go here? What's your view on the overall market at this point?
Well, let's do a little of the prediction markets that the New York Stock Exchange bought, a $2 billion stake, or about 25% of Poly Market today. So let's you and I do a prediction thing, Frank. If you said that this stalemate with the shutdown gets resolved, and right now it's still predicted on many of those exchanges to last for a total of 20 days. So far, we're only, 7 days into that. I would say if we get that settlement in the next couple days, perhaps next week. Last week, of course, was almost a write-off because of the Jewish holiday and so forth that shortened the week for many traders. I would say if we get a settlement middle of next week or so, the market reacts with maybe a 1.5–2% move by the end of next week. So I'm still bullish, Frank. I would not be cashing out of my positions right now.
All right. Any adjustments on your crypto predictions, where you see a Bitcoin go from here, Ethereum, Solana, Doge, and right down the line?
Right. Well, so I work with a Doge miner, Doge mining company, and I work with, as I said, a digital asset treasury, which is BNC. And I think that one through 10X Capital is one that I would really watch, because Binance, until recently, Americans couldn't own it because there were no exchanges that Americans had access to. They could basically skirt the rules if they were willing to and go through a VPN to get ownership of Binance. But that coin, which is BNB, like boy, Nancy boy, that one is up some, I believe, 53%, 54% this year. Again, that mirrors analog gold's move so far this year. And I think because of the less friction that one has versus Ethereum and versus Bitcoin, it'll be more of the transaction model. And so I really like that. And a lot of things are being built on the BNB backbone.
Where do you think Bitcoin goes from here?
I'm going to stick with my prediction with you from basically the beginning of the year. And I'm going to say 140 to 150, 140,000 to the U.S. dollar to 150,000 to the U.S. dollar. Doesn't seem that outlandish now that we've hit 126, but I think we could easily be close to that number by the end of the year. I know Tom Lee is already calling for 200. I don't think we get there this year, but next year we just might.
Any other specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, one of the things that the president has really been pursuing aggressively is critical minerals and things like lithium, cobalt, manganese, and so forth. And today it was TMQ, I think it is, that was up 200% today on the president basically writing back an opening in Alaska for them to go mining up there. I think these are indeed critical because China's been hoarding so much of this stuff that we would be behind the eight ball in terms of military, because it's got applications in missiles as well as drones. And then in cars, like you mentioned with Tesla, EVs require a lot of lithium, cobalt, manganese, and so forth. So I think keep your eye on that sector. The miners, they're going to keep moving to the upside because this is such a critical thing for the United States at this point.
Yep, TMQ, I'm pulling it up now. Trilogy Metals did, in fact, move up $4.41 to $6.50, a gain of 211%. John NAJARIAN, thank you very much for that thorough assessment, as always. We always appreciate it, and we wish you a wonderful evening. That is Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks. John NAJARIAN, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues 790 KABC. Stocks taking a break from a record-shattering run-up, with the Dow pulling back 92 today. The S&P 500 down 26, and the NASDAQ down 153. All the major averages just below recent record highs. The volatility index moved at 5% today. The yield on the 10-year note at 4.13%. Gold, the star of the day today, moving above 4,000, closing above 4,000 for the first time, right now at around 4,011. Silver at 47.72. Platinum at $1,651 and change. Crude oil futures of 45 cents at 62.18. Among the stars of the day, shares of U.S.-listed mineral exploring company Trilogy Metals surging more than 225%. Shortly after the White House said it would take a 10% stake in that Canadian company, Trilogy Metals shares closed at $4.41 at $6.50. Tesla pulling into reverse today, down more than 20 at $4.33 and change. Oracle down 7 at $2.84 and change. NVIDIA down 50 cents at $185.04. And now the latest news on 790 KABC.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Action. Next Roll is a groundbreaking podcast created and executive produced by Vernon Davis.
This is where we talk about reinvention.
The series explores the transformative journeys of athletes, artists, comedians, and entrepreneurs.
They don't just stop here. They just keep going.
Next Roll isn't about what's next. It's about why they do it, how they overcome fear, and the resilience it takes to keep evolving at the highest level.
That's what it's all about. Stay tuned.
Next Roll with Vernon Davis. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. We're watching latest developments in Washington. Government shutdown continues. Looks like a dispute has emerged over back pay for furloughed workers, and we're seeing some fallout here. Reports of staffing shortages causing air travel delays as the government shutdown nears the 1 week mark. Keeping track of all of this is Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform. He has a ringside seat there in Washington to all the goings on. Grover, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Delighted to be with you.
Wonderful.
Things are pretty much the same. The Republicans put together a budget which stopped a $4 trillion tax increase over 10 years, every 10 years out in the future, $400 billion a year. That was stopped. The tax cuts that earlier were made permanent. Every single Democrat voted to drop your standard deduction in half, to cut your per-child tax credit in half, to raise taxes on small businesses, pass-through, subchapter S corporations, to raise taxes on investments by getting rid of the whole idea of allowing people to invest quickly and to take immediate deductions rather than over a long period of time. Tremendous increase, if the Democrats had won, in the cost of investing in new jobs and equipment. That's the fight. And now the Democrats refuse to help the Republicans pass legislative bills. Only about 4 or 5 of the departments, defense, those sorts of things, got passed, but not all the way through. And so we have to have a continuing resolution, which is just keeping everything going forward. 7 months ago, they did that. And the Democrat leader, Schumer, said, we must do this. We shouldn't close the government down. That would give the president too much power. And he convinced the left of the party to do that. So 7 months ago, Schumer stood and said, let's not close the government down. That's stupid. That's a bad idea. And even for Democrats, it's a bad idea politically. Now he says, because the left of his party is screaming at him, we want you to do something, whatever it is. It may not work, but do something. He's now said, okay, we demand that you increase spending $1.5 trillion, Republicans, then we'll let you keep the government open. Okay? That's the hostage taking at a bank. And $1.5 trillion, that's a lot of money, okay, that they want to spend. And then we'll give you then we'll let you keep the government going. Of course, the government is still going, as you point out. And they're really trying hard to find problems with the fact that some people aren't showing up, for work, which is what happens every time there's a quote-unquote shutdown and unnecessary workers are told to stay home, and the ones that are absolutely necessary come in. But we're at a stalemate because the Democrats want $1.5 trillion of more spending, and the Republicans are saying, we won the last election. Our job was to reduce spending. We're not going to give you a bunch of left-wing spending from the American people.
On the Live with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. President continuing to comment about all of this, and looks like some furloughed workers will not be getting back pay, it seems, once the government reopens its doors, and may not even have jobs. And I don't know if you saw the latest report here, the guarantee of back pay for furloughed federal employees is also now in limbo as the White House weighs in an interpretation of a 2019 law. What do you think is going to happen with all of that?
Well, they have said this time around, in the past, people would stay home for 3 days, 3 weeks, 2 months, knowing that when they came back and when the government, quote unquote, reopened, they would get paid for the days they were not at work. And then things would go on. So not only did you, quote unquote, shut the government down, but you had hundreds of thousands of federal government workers who had a vacation, got paid, and federal employees get paid much more than the average citizen doing the same job, which is why Washington, D.C. Has an average pay way above the average in the nation. It's not because of all the oil rigs that they have in Washington, D.C., or the farms or the factories. They don't have any of those things. They just collect tax dollars. But so it's a better paid area than the rest of the world. They live off the taxes of other people, and they would expect to be paid even for the time they didn't work. That's not clear that that's legal. And the president's right. I'm not sure if you can write checks because the ability to write those checks dies at the end of the budget year, October 1st.
All right. Is there supposed to be some sort of a vote tonight in the Senate? What's the next step in this process here?
Well, they have a vote regularly, and the Democrats keep voting no, keep the government closed, and the Republicans keep voting yes, keep it open with a continuing resolution. I think this is the Republicans' way of reminding everybody the Democrats closed the government down. They're tired of the last 27 times the government shut down, and the establishment press said the Republicans did that. This time they want to make it very clear who's shutting the government down. The Republicans voted to keep it open in the House, passed the House. They voted in the Senate, and all the senators, the Republican senators voted a majority to pass it, and the Democrats voted no, and of course they filibustered, so they were able to stop it. They will keep having votes, which is the way of reminding the country that the Republicans are trying to keep the government open and the Democrats are trying to keep it shut in order to get more money for their special projects.
All right. We got October 15th coming up, the drop-dead tax deadline, right, for those who filed the extension. Anything we should know about that or anything else tax-related that's on your radar screen as that day approaches?
Well, the IRS is, functioning fine, or as good as it ever does. Do file quarterly as one ought to, and they'll probably cut you some slack because they're not in there to read everything. But remember, the IRS, the studies about the IRS that were done by the federal government themselves point out that most IRS agents are not in the office anyway, even when they're quote unquote at work. They work from home. They take your personal data on their computers and take it home. You can imagine how secure that is. It is a very real problem. The IRS agents should be at the office. All the data of American citizens should be in computers that cannot be picked up and moved to take home, to be lost on the subway, because it's an outrage that they do that. The IRS, more than other agencies, needs to reform itself and get serious. But they've had a very powerful union that's resisted all efforts to get them to work on a regular basis.
And their unofficial slogan, I believe, continues to be they've got what it takes to take what you've got, right? That's the IRS unofficial slogan.
I think you're right.
Grover, thank you very much for that big update, and we'll keep an open line to you on all things happening there on the front line in Washington. Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Start your day with America in the Morning.
I'm John Trout, your host.
From breaking news.
The U.S. Supreme Court with rulings. Shifting gears, Apple has released a new iPhone. Here's the Wednesday Business Report. It's far from a seller's market.
To politics and entertainment.
Moving into scary movie season, so why not another Conjuring movie? Shifting gears, Powerball jackpot is now the third largest ever in history.
Live long and prosper.
America in the Morning.
Fresh each day.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Tesla making news today, rolling out a couple of cheaper versions of two of its electric car models in hopes of offerings that will revive sales there. But investors did send Tesla shares pulling into reverse today, down more than $20 at $433 and change. The new Model Y costing just under $40,000 with the stripped-down interior. Comes in a brutal year for Tesla as it tries to attract more customers. Also, auto loan delinquencies have soared by more than 50% over the last 15 years, according to a new Vantage Score report. Joining us live now is our go-to car expert, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports and the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, thanks very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Anytime. Yeah, the new Tesla that we've been kind of waiting for basically is a smaller battery, fewer stereo speakers, and that may not make a difference to most people, and a removal of a few other featured items, basically netting about $5,000 off its lowest priced Model Y. So the idea is that when you lose that $7,500 tax credit, and it's not going to be compensated from the state of California, although Governor Gavin Newsom said that he would make up the difference and use taxpayer dollars to help people purchase electric cars. That is completely out the window now. I believe we discussed that last week, but the bottom line is they've got to be able to sell cars. And because Tesla did really well with the last few weeks of the tax credit, their third quarter was good. Now going into the fourth quarter, we shall see if this is going to drum up sales. I think in the future, you're going to see Tesla becoming more of a tech company, which is what they are set up for, not a car company, doing more robo-taxis and robots to help people, whether it's cutting your lawn or servicing people. I think you're going to see a lot more of that and switching away from cars because the Cybertruck didn't do well either, neither did their big tractor trailer. So it's time to start looking at other avenues. And Elon Musk's smart enough to start looking at other avenues. And wherever there's government subsidies, I'm sure he'll be there.
Very interesting. So in addition to that Y model, Model 3, also a new version of that one too?
I did not see the reveal for that because I was on the phone with you, but I know that they're trying to do some lower price vehicles, some entry-level vehicles, so that if people were thinking, I would like to have that with all the goodies, maybe less goodies aren't what it's about, the features. It's more about the utility of getting me to work, getting my kids home, wherever it is that we do. Electric vehicles don't work for everyone. We're having a problem right now with the infrastructure, and although Governor Newsom says that he's going to put in more charging stations with the debt that the state is in right now, I don't know where they're going to come up with the money. They can't raise the taxes much more. It's already a burden on a lot of people. So, just be aware of that. I know there's a lot of unusual regulations and things he's trying to slip through. There is a new leader at the California Air Resources Board, and they could easily put in some more regulations, and we'll be monitoring that.
It's great that you're plugged into what's happening here in California, and a lot of EV buyers feeling betrayed by what you just described there. So what do EV buyers here in California need to know about where things stand with this EV credit or elect up?
Well, we know that Gavin Newsom will no longer be in office by the time of 2030, that he's planning on saying that that's when he wants it all EV. So whoever your next governor is, and that's, of course, important for you to vote, if you pick someone that's on the same page as him, they're going to continue with pushing that 2030 agenda. If you're like, nope, we're done with this, we're going to go a different direction, the citizens of the state of California can vote to put someone in like Steve Hilton or someone else. At that point, that tax credit, that mandate will go away. We also are waiting for a Supreme Court decision, and we don't have a date on it yet, when they're going to take the powers away from the California Air Resources Board. Currently, when they make a mandate of what the emissions are for the state of California, it goes across all the other 50 states. That's actually not constitutional. One state cannot make the rules for the other. Just like if Arkansas said every car is going to be diesel, California would say, well, we don't want that. So every state gets to make their own rules and regulations, and that's what's really important, that you monitor this, because whoever you vote for is going to help make those decisions that affect everybody, whether you're buying an electric car or not. Now, if you are looking for an electric car, there are some really fabulous deals out there. We've seen that manufacturers such as Ford have said, listen, we don't have the $7,500 tax credit, so we're going to take $10,000 off the price of the vehicle, and we're going to give you a charging station. But mind you, be careful. These are purchases. These are not leases. And the reason the manufacturers are turning them into purchases with these lower prices is they want to get them off their lots, off their books. If they lease that vehicle through Ford Motor Credit or through Hyundai or through any brand, they know that in 3 years at the end of your lease, that vehicle comes back to them, and they're going to take a loss on it. So if you're going to buy it and you're going to keep it for the long term, and this is the perfect vehicle for you, great. But note that at some point you're going to need new batteries. It's going to be very expensive. And that we're already seeing with people that have older Teslas, and they're going, how much is that battery? I'll just leave the car somewhere and get something else. And a lot of the brands don't want your used electric vehicle. It's sort of like buying a used phone. You don't know how many times it's been cycled, what the battery life is actually going to be left, and the cost to replace that battery is really expensive.
So this all-electric future that was the vision a couple of years ago has definitely changed. And what you just said about Tesla maybe getting away from electric vehicles, that's pretty significant. What do you see on the horizon for this EV future that they were planning for?
I think it's gone. I think what you're going to see, this is according to websites like IC Cars and even Automotive News, are suddenly finally agreeing with me. Took them years to get on board, but they're now agreeing that, this is not going to be what they thought. They know that car brands are already, some are still saying they're going to go electric, but brands like Porsche have already said, well, that's not going to work. We're going to go back to gas. We're going to offer hybrids. Stellantis, which is Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, that includes a couple of the other smaller brands. They've said this electric thing's not going to work for us. We're going to build what customers want in the United States, which is fabulous, because what you want is what you should be able to buy. Nissan's also pulled their Aria, so you'll see the Leaf available if you want an electric car, but they've already said they're cutting production. So we're starting to see the transition of them waking up, but they're still almost fearful that the federal government might change their mind. They won't. And the next administration won't be able to say, hey, we're going back to that electric vehicle mandate. And the reason they can't is there was a Congressional Review Act signed by President Trump, and that's the end of it. We will not see any more mandates for electric cars. And now if we can take away the rest of the powers to the EPA, which Lee Zeldin's in the process of doing, you will then have plenty of options available to you for a long time. And remember that the problem with making these mandates is people that can't afford a new car, that are still driving their older vehicle, can't afford to buy a new car with higher insurance and finding charging when they can barely afford to keep the car they have. So it's best to keep what you have. Car brands don't want to hear me say that, but that's the truth.
Affordability, certainly a big issue here, and we saw that report today. Auto delinquencies surging across income levels, with auto loan delinquencies soaring by more than 50% over the past 15 years, according to a new Vantage Score report. What do people need to know about auto financing these days, and what readings are you getting there?
Okay, I would highly suggest that if you're in a position where you can't afford to make the payments for whatever reason, everything costs too much, you lost your job, whatever it might be, you're upside down, which means you owe more on it than it's worth, contact the financing company, whether it's a bank or a leasing company, explain to them your situation. They would rather have regular payments coming from you than have you not make payments and have that vehicle repossessed. So the best thing you can do is reach out to them, tell them your situation. You'll get someone who will work with you and try to make the payments reasonable for you. But remind you that if you go longer term and suddenly it's 8 years of a loan and they refinance it for you, you're going to have that vehicle for a long time. So it's important that you maintain that vehicle, and also keep in mind that if you try to sell it during that longer period of time, the vehicle will most likely be worth a lot less than what you owe on it. So you'll have to pay out that loan before you go to the next vehicle.
So a lot of people having trouble, and that's great advice just now there with that excellent suggestion. Are you getting readings that show delinquencies are soaring again?
Yeah, we're starting to see that. And it's mostly for middle to lower income earners. And it's difficult. I mean, the cost of everything is higher, especially in the state of California, where your electricity prices are the highest in the entire country. And Gavin Newsom isn't making it any cheaper when he's trying to get all these fossil fuel companies out of the state. Anyone that's gas or coal, they want them gone. And if those refineries leave, that means the cost of gasoline is going to get higher. They're trying to reverse it right now. I've been doing some research, and I'll have a report coming out in the very near future about the 13 refineries that are still in the state. And now Gavin Newsom said, maybe we shouldn't let them go because the price of gasoline could be $10 a gallon, and that will not help him or whoever decides to replace him. So at least on his side of the aisle. So it's really important that you might want to keep what you have and maintain it. Getting your oil changed, rotating the tires, taking care of the vehicle in general is a smart idea.
Terrific, Lauren. Thank you very much. Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports and the Total Car Score podcast. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money, 790 KBC. The Dow down 92 today, S&P 500 down 26, NASDAQ down 153.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.